What business do you have carrying around that kind of money? The harsh words cut through the silence like a blade when Sandra spotted the thick envelope of cash in Marcus Thompson's grip. But let's start from the beginning. Marcus had entered First National Bank that Tuesday afternoon, dressed casually in dark jeans, a simple shirt, and a light jacket. He approached the commercial banking section with confidence and said politely, "Good afternoon. I need to make a business deposit." The blonde teller behind the counter, Sandra by her nameplate, scrutinized him from top to bottom before responding curtly, "Excuse me, but this area is reserved for commercial clients. Personal banking is handled at the main counter over there." Marcus remained composed. "I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm coming directly from my office and need to handle a business transaction." He took a seat and calmly retrieved the cash envelope from his briefcase. That's when Sandra delivered her accusatory question about the money's origin. "This comes from my company," Marcus replied matter-of-factly. Sandra's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Before we proceed any further, I'm going to need to verify your identity." Interestingly, the previous customer, a white businessman in an expensive suit, had completed his transaction without any such scrutiny. Nevertheless, Marcus cooperated. He extracted his wallet and presented his driver's license. Sandra examined the ID with exaggerated skepticism before looking back at him suspiciously. "Are you certain this identification belongs to you?" she questioned. "Of course it's mine," Marcus responded steadily. After studying him for several more seconds, she made another demand. "I'm going to require additional identification." Marcus's eyebrows lifted slightly. "For what reason?" "This is the first time anyone has ever made such a request." Sandra replied with practiced authority, "Bank policy allows me to request further verification when I detect potentially suspicious behavior. Have you ever found yourself treated like a criminal simply because of your appearance?" What would your response be in Marcus's position? If you believe equal treatment should be universal regardless of appearance, please like this video and subscribe to Truth Tales. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Marcus leaned back, observing her carefully. Suspicious behavior. Rather than escalating, he reached back into his briefcase. "Fine. Here's my university identification. This should suffice." Sandra stared at the college ID as if it were a joke. Her eyes squinted before she let out a dismissive laugh. "Harvard? You seriously want me to believe you attended Harvard? This identification appears counterfeit. I need to see a passport or some other official documentation." Marcus's patience was beginning to wear thin, though his voice remained controlled. Why would anyone bring their passport for a simple bank deposit? Sandra's face contorted as though he'd personally offended her. "Oh, so now you want to get clever with me," she snapped. She then turned and called across the floor, her voice carrying throughout the branch. "Rebecca, could you please come over here?" Shortly after, another woman appeared, this one wearing professional attire and wire-rimmed glasses. Rebecca approached the counter looking puzzled. Sandra wasted no time holding up the Harvard Idaho and asking, "Does this look authentic to you?" Rebecca leaned in for a closer look and nodded without hesitation. "Yes, that's definitely genuine." Sandra's confident smirk disappeared instantly. Her lips pressed into a thin line as she muttered, "All right, thank you." Rebecca left as quickly as she'd arrived. Sandra turned back to Marcus with obvious irritation. "I need to verify this amount." She began running the bills through the counting machine. Marcus sat patiently, then reached into his briefcase once more. "I'd also like to deposit this," he said, sliding a check across the counter. Sandra glanced at the document and her entire demeanor shifted. $25,000, she said, her voice rising an octave. "What exactly are you doing with this amount of money?" Marcus met her gaze directly. "That's not your concern." She picked up the check and read the header carefully. "This is from Thompson Financial Group," she said slowly. "You expect me to believe you work there? This has to be a fraudulent check." Marcus didn't even blink. "You're welcome to contact the company directly to verify." Have you ever had someone look you straight in the face and try to diminish your achievement simply because they couldn't fathom your success? If you believe success knows no color, please like this video and subscribe to Truth Tales for more real stories like this. Sandra leaned forward aggressively. Please. You probably don't even have legitimate employment. Maybe I should call security instead. Marcus finally stood up. His voice remained calm but carried new authority. I'm finished with this treatment. Return my cash and check so I can leave. As Marcus rose and requested his documents back, Sandra's face hardened with defiance. Instead of complying, she reached under her desk and pressed an alarm. Security, she shouted. Within moments, a tall, athletic black security guard entered the room. His presence commanded attention, but his tone remained professional. What seems to be the problem? He asked, looking between them. Sandra pointed accusingly at Marcus, her voice theatrical and loud. This individual presented fake identification, lied about his employment, and is now attempting to cash a fraudulent check. Marcus remained unfazed. Actually, she's engaging in racial profiling and making baseless assumptions while I'm simply trying to conduct routine banking business. Sandra rolled her eyes dramatically and raised her voice for nearby customers to hear. You people always play the race card when you get caught. I can spot a criminal from a mile away. The entire area fell silent. Marcus looked her directly in the eyes and said, everything you've stated is completely false. You claimed I never attended university, but I not only graduated from one of the nation's most prestigious institutions, I finished at the top of my class. Following that, I established my own company, which has grown over the years into one of the most successful financial firms in this entire metropolitan area. He added with quiet authority, the point is, never judge a book by its cover, because I'm not just an employee at Thompson Financial Group. I'm the founder and CEO. Sandra stared at him briefly, then erupted in loud, mocking laughter. You expect anyone to believe that nonsense? She turned to the security guard. Remove him from the premises. It's obvious he's lying. But instead of acting, the security guard raised an eyebrow and looked at her thoughtfully. What if he's telling the truth? Perhaps you should call that number on the check to confirm. Sandra hesitated, clearly not anticipating this suggestion. After a moment's pause, she said, Fine, I will. She lifted the phone on her desk, dialed the number from the check, and said, Hello, this is Sandra calling from First National Bank. I have someone here attempting to deposit what appears to be a fraudulent check. Could you please connect me with the company owner? Thank you. Immediately after Sandra finished speaking, Marcus's phone began ringing loudly. He calmly retrieved it, displayed the screen for her to see, and answered. As you can see, he said quietly, you're calling me. Have you ever witnessed the moment when someone's entire reality crumbles due to their own prejudice? The instant Marcus answered his ringing phone and stated, as you can see, you're calling me, Sandra froze completely, her hand gradually lowering from her ear. I don't comprehend, she stammered, her eyes darting between the phone in her hand and his. But she didn't get time to process this revelation because at that moment, the bank's regional manager entered the room. A distinguished middle-aged man in a navy suit stepped inside, surveyed the scene, and said with a warm smile, Mr. Thompson. Marcus turned and acknowledged him cordially. David, pleasure to see you. Sandra blinked rapidly, her voice barely a whisper. Sir, you're acquainted with this person. David's smile vanished immediately. He looked at her sharply and responded, Yes, this is Marcus Thompson, founder of Thompson Financial Group, our most valuable client. Sandra's jaw nearly hit the counter. This person is our most valuable client. David didn't even glance at her. Absolutely. Then, finally noticing the tense atmosphere, his eyes moved to the security guard and back to Marcus. Is there some kind of problem here? Marcus shook his head slowly. Unfortunately, yes, David. Sandra here made assumptions about me based entirely on my appearance. David turned to Sandra, his expression shocked. You did what? Sandra raised her hands defensively, already flustered. I mean, could you really blame me? Just look at his appearance. That was all David needed to hear. His expression turned stern. You should understand better than anyone never to judge based on appearances. He turned back to Marcus with genuine remorse. Mr. Thompson, I sincerely apologize. I guarantee this will never occur again because Sandra is terminated, effective immediately. Sandra's mouth fell open. What? Terminated? You can't do that. But David was resolute. I just did. We've received previous complaints about your discriminatory treatment of customers. I should have addressed this sooner. He gestured to the security guard. Please ensure she collects her belongings. Sandra stood motionless as the guard professionally directed her to gather her things. David then turned back to Marcus. Mr. Thompson, I would be honored to assist you personally in my private office. Please accompany me. Have you ever seen someone attempt to tear another person down only to be exposed by the truth? If you believe respect should never depend on appearance, like this video and subscribe to Truth Tales for more stories that reveal what happens when prejudice encounters power. And just like that, the man she tried to humiliate walked past her with dignity intact, straight into the executive office she never knew existed. The story may have ended for Sandra, but the lesson remains eternal.